A criminal complaint describes someone as approximately dead. If that made you do a double take, you're not ready for what's coming next. Someone once called 911 because their cheeseburger went missing, not stolen from a restaurant, from their own home. The emergency dispatcher had to explain that domestic burger theft isn't exactly a police matter, even when it involves your favorite late-night snack disappearing from the fridge. Then there's the woman who dialed police not once, but twice about her Subway sandwich. The issue? They put the wrong sauce on it. She genuinely believed this sandwich emergency warranted immediate law enforcement intervention. The officers who responded probably wished they were dealing with actual criminals instead of condiment complaints. But wait, it gets better. Police officers once found themselves mediating a heated argument between roommates over a single missing bacon slice. One person accused the other of bacon burglary, the other denied all charges. Officers spent 30 minutes investigating the Great Bacon Mystery, ultimately determining that nobody could prove who ate the evidence. A restaurant worker actually called 911 to report a stolen burrito, not realizing that workplace food theft isn't a criminal matter requiring emergency response. The dispatcher had to gently explain the difference between actual theft and someone snagging your lunch from the break room fridge. The worker seemed genuinely confused about why police wouldn't investigate missing Mexican food. Meanwhile, another customer threatened full legal action over missing onions on her burger. She demanded the restaurant manager's name, the corporate office number, and wanted to know if she could press charges for false advertising. All this drama over onions that cost maybe 15 cents. The manager offered free onions, but she wanted justice instead. These food-related police calls happen more often than you'd think. Emergency dispatchers regularly field complaints about cold fries, missing pickles, and incorrect drive-through orders. People genuinely believe that unsatisfactory fast food experiences require immediate police intervention. What makes these calls even more bizarre is the complete seriousness of the callers. They're not joking around or trying to prank anyone. They honestly think their food problems are police matters requiring urgent attention. The cheeseburger guy was legitimately upset about his missing sandwich. The Subway woman felt personally wronged by incorrect condiments. Emergency dispatchers have heard it all when it comes to food complaints. Someone once called because their pizza arrived 10 minutes late. Another person demanded police help because McDonald's ice cream machine was broken and they felt deceived by the menu. One caller wanted officers to arrest a waiter who forgot their extra ketchup packets. The best part? These people often get genuinely confused when dispatchers explain that police don't handle food service issues. They argue back, insisting that they've been wronged and deserve official help. Some even ask to speak with a supervisor, as if 911 dispatchers have managers who might override food-related emergency policies. Restaurant workers know these calls happen regularly. They've seen customers threaten police action over everything from slightly warm soda to hamburgers that look different from menu photos. Most just nod politely while customers rant about calling authorities over French fry temperature. Of course, food isn't the only thing that confuses people about when to call police. Wait until you hear about the truly misplaced priorities that keep emergency services busy with completely ridiculous situations. When food fights end, the real head-scratchers begin. An Ohio man once called 911 in complete panic, reporting mysterious symbols that had appeared on his arms overnight. He was convinced someone had broken into his house and drawn weird markings on him while he slept. The dispatcher stayed calm, asking detailed questions about the symbols. After 20 minutes of investigation, the man suddenly went quiet. Turns out he'd been doodling on himself with a Sharpie the night before while watching TV and completely forgot about it. But that's just the beginning of misplaced priorities gone wild. A woman in Texas dialed emergency services because she'd received suspicious foreign currency in her change at a gas station. She demanded immediate police assistance to identify what she called fake money with a woman's face on it. The object of her concern? A perfectly legitimate Canadian quarter featuring Queen Elizabeth II. She insisted it was counterfeit because America doesn't have queens. Then there's the neighbor disputes that make you question humanity. One caller reported their next-door neighbor's dog to police because it kept staring at them through the fence. Not barking, not aggressive behavior, just looking. The caller felt emotionally violated by the dog's gaze and wanted officers to file a restraining order against a golden retriever named Buster. Marriage advice through emergency services hits different, though. A confused wife called 911 asking dispatchers to confirm whether her husband actually needed to shower daily. She'd been arguing with him about hygiene standards and thought police could settle their domestic debate. The call lasted 15 minutes while she explained their bathroom schedule in excruciating detail. And the weird part is, these calls keep getting stranger. Wildlife encounters bring out people's most irrational fears. One homeowner filed an official police report about a disturbing squirrel sighting in their backyard. The squirrel's crime? Sitting on a bird feeder and eating seeds. The caller was convinced this was abnormal behavior and potentially dangerous to the neighborhood. Officers had to explain that squirrels commonly eat birdseed and aren't typically arrested for trespassing. Let's not forget the medical emergencies that aren't medical at all. A man called paramedics because he couldn't remember if he'd taken his vitamins that morning. He was worried about double dosing on his daily multivitamin and wanted professional medical guidance. The EMTs arrived to find him holding a Flintstones chewable, completely serious about the potential overdose. Technology confusion creates its own category of absurd calls. An elderly woman phoned police because her new smartphone kept talking back to her. She was terrified that someone had hacked her device and was monitoring her conversations. The responding officer discovered she'd accidentally activated Siri and had been having arguments with Apple's voice assistant for 3 days straight. Weather-related panic reaches new heights when people report suspicious clouds that look too perfect to be natural. One caller insisted the government was controlling local weather patterns because a cloud formation looked like a triangle. These misguided emergency calls reveal something fascinating about human nature and our relationship with authority. But when animals get involved in the mix, the stories become even more unbelievable. When you think dealing with people is complicated, wait until animals enter the picture. Police departments across the country receive countless calls about pets and wildlife behaving in ways that somehow require emergency intervention. These aren't your typical animal control situations either. Take the cat owner in Michigan who called 911 with absolute certainty that her neighbors were remotely controlling her pet. She insisted they had some kind of device that made her cat walk in circles and meow at specific times. The responding officer found a perfectly normal cat doing perfectly normal cat things, but the woman remained convinced there was a conspiracy involving her tabby. Then there's the sneaky raccoon situation. A homeowner discovered the masked bandit had taken up residence in their attic and immediately dialed emergency services. Not animal control, the police. The caller described the raccoon as plotting something because it only moved around at night and seemed to be casing the joint. Officers had to explain that nocturnal behavior is pretty standard for raccoons. Things get even stranger when you consider the chicken chase incident in downtown Portland. A man called 911 reporting he was being pursued by an aggressive fowl that had somehow escaped from who knows where. The emergency dispatch actually sent a unit to rescue this grown man from a chicken. The bird was eventually corralled by a helpful bystander with a bagel, but the missing pot mystery tops them all. An elderly woman filed a police report claiming someone had broken into her home and stolen her favorite cooking pot. She was certain it was theft because she'd searched everywhere. 3 days later, she called back sheepishly. Her cat had somehow dragged the pot under the bed and hidden it behind a pile of stored blankets. The thief had whiskers and a tendency to knock things over. The most bizarre animal-related call involved a dog driving a car. Multiple witnesses reported seeing a golden retriever behind the wheel of a moving vehicle in suburban Ohio. Police responded with lights and sirens, expecting to find either a very talented dog or a very short person. What they discovered was a man who'd trained his large dog to sit on his lap while he drove. The dog's head blocked the view of the actual driver from certain angles. Emergency dispatchers say animal calls spike during full moons, though there's no scientific explanation for why pets apparently get weirder when the moon is bright. Makes sense, right? Well, maybe not scientifically, but it definitely makes for interesting police reports. These calls reveal something fascinating about human nature. People form such strong bonds with their pets that they'll involve law enforcement in the most trivial situations. A barking dog becomes a neighborhood conspiracy. A missing hamster requires a full investigation. The weird part is how seriously some of these situations are taken by the callers. They're not joking around or trying to waste anyone's time. They genuinely believe their pet emergencies require immediate police intervention. Speaking of things that require immediate intervention, Wait until you hear what happens when household objects start acting suspicious. When you think about modern homes, you picture smart technology making life easier. Well, nobody told that to an Oregon woman who discovered her worst nightmare lurking in the bathroom. She called 911, frantically reporting a home invasion in progress. The intruder was moving around her house without permission, making strange noises, and had somehow gotten into her most private space. Police rushed to the scene, ready for action. They found the culprit red-handed in the bathroom. It was her Roomba. The little robot vacuum had simply done its job a bit too well, wandering into every room, including the one place she wasn't expecting it. Makes sense, right? But robotic vacuums aren't the only household items causing panic. A concerned citizen once called authorities about their mailbox acting suspicious. They demanded an official police inspection because the mailbox was behaving oddly. What exactly constitutes suspicious mailbox behavior remains unclear, but apparently it was serious enough to warrant professional investigation. Then there's the case of the haunted refrigerator. One homeowner filed a formal complaint about their fridge keeping them awake at night. They insisted the appliance was possessed, making mysterious sounds and operating at all hours. The supernatural activity, the ice maker doing its job and the compressor running normally. And the weird part is, technology keeps getting smarter, which means the complaints keep getting stranger. Someone actually reported their smart TV for giving unwanted relationship advice. They claimed their television had been hacked and was now dispensing romantic guidance during their favorite shows. Whether the advice was any good wasn't mentioned in the police report. The most paranoid case involved a man who became convinced his toaster was plotting against him. He didn't just unplug it or throw it away like a normal person would. Instead, he called police and demanded they confiscate the appliance as evidence. He genuinely believed the kitchen device posed a legitimate threat to his safety and wanted official intervention. Let's not forget these aren't isolated incidents. Officers across the country regularly respond to calls about misbehaving household items. Coffee makers that won't cooperate, washing machines that sound threatening, and garage door openers that apparently have minds of their own. The reality is that modern homes are filled with gadgets that beep, whir, and move around on their own. For some people, this technological symphony becomes a source of genuine fear rather than convenience. They hear normal operational sounds and see coordinated attacks. Motion sensors become spy equipment, and automatic timers become evidence of sabotage. What makes these calls particularly fascinating is the absolute seriousness with which they're reported. These aren't prank calls or attempts at humor. People genuinely believe their appliances have turned against them and that law enforcement is the appropriate solution. But if you think inanimate objects cause enough trouble, wait until you hear what happens when people start making excuses for their own bad behavior. The creativity reaches whole new levels when someone needs to explain away their questionable choices. When caught red-handed, most people try to explain their way out of trouble. But some excuses are so ridiculous they make the original crime seem reasonable by comparison. Take the shoplifter who blamed his pants. This genius walked into a store, stuffed merchandise down his trousers, and headed for the exit. Security stopped him when items started falling out of his pant legs like a bizarre piñata. His defense? My pants are defective. They're too loose and things just fall into them. The officer asked how a DVD player accidentally falls upward into someone's waistband. The suspect maintained his innocence, claiming he suffered from gravity confusion disorder. That's apparently a real condition he made up on the spot. Then there's the driver who tried convincing police that his golden retriever was behind the wheel during a traffic stop. Officer pulls over a weaving car, walks up to find a clearly intoxicated man in the driver's seat with his dog in the passenger side. Officer, I wasn't driving, the man slurred. Rex here was driving. I'm just the navigator. When asked how a dog operates pedals, the man explained that Rex is unusually talented and had been practicing in the driveway. The dog, for his part, looked embarrassed by the whole situation. But wait, it gets stranger. A man pulled over for drunk driving blamed gravity itself for his condition. Not gravity making him fall down, gravity making him drunk. He insisted that Earth's gravitational pull was stronger that night, causing the alcohol in his system to compress and become more potent. The officer asked if he was a physicist. No, but I watch a lot of Discovery Channel, came the reply. Apparently, he thought scientific-sounding nonsense would somehow make his blood alcohol level disappear. The supernatural excuse category deserves special mention. A burglar caught breaking into a house told officers that a ghost commanded him to do it. Not just any ghost, specifically the ghost of the previous homeowner who was concerned about security and wanted the current residents to upgrade their locks. The thief claimed he was actually performing a public service by exposing vulnerabilities in their home defense system. Police asked why the ghost didn't just knock on the front door like a normal phantom. The burglar looked genuinely puzzled by this question. And then there's physical comedy at its finest. An attempted robbery suspect got stuck halfway through a drive-through window while trying to escape. Picture this: legs flailing outside, torso wedged inside, and the entire restaurant staff watching this human cork struggle for freedom. When firefighters finally extracted him, he claimed he wasn't robbing the place. He was just really excited about the new chicken sandwich and took a shortcut to the counter. The stolen cash register in his backpack suggested otherwise. These aren't just funny stories. They reveal something fascinating about human psychology under pressure. When people panic, logic goes out the window faster than common sense at a flat earth convention. Speaking of logic going out the window, some people take their bizarre requests directly to emergency services with expectations that would make these excuse makers seem reasonable. While some people call 911 for stolen sandwiches, others take the absurd to entirely new levels. Take the Oregon caller who frantically dialed emergency services demanding immediate police assistance. The crisis? A mushroom had appeared in their yard overnight, and they were convinced it posed a serious threat to neighborhood safety. Officers arrived expecting some sort of biohazard situation, only to find a perfectly normal mushroom doing what mushrooms do best, just existing. Then there's the elderly gentleman who treated 911 like his personal tech support hotline. His emergency? He'd lost his TV remote somewhere in his living room and needed professional help locating it. The dispatcher patiently explained that this wasn't exactly a police matter, but the man insisted he'd already looked everywhere and clearly needed backup. Makes you wonder what constitutes a real emergency in some people's minds, right? But wait, it gets better. A woman called police requesting urgent assistance getting ready for a date. Her zipper was stuck, and she'd apparently exhausted all other options. The responding officer probably didn't expect wardrobe malfunction mediation to be part of their job description that day. Yet there they were, helping someone prepare for romance instead of fighting crime. Let's not forget the lawn mowing vigilante who sparked a neighborhood investigation. This man called police to file a formal complaint because his neighbor was copying his grass-cutting pattern. He'd apparently developed a signature mowing style and felt his intellectual property was being violated. The officers had to explain that lawn mowing patterns aren't exactly protected by copyright law, and the weird part is how these calls keep escalating. One noise complaint involved a concerned citizen reporting suspicious laughter coming from next door. Not screaming, not arguing, just laughter that sounded too happy for their liking. They demanded police investigate whether the neighbors were up to something sinister or just having a good time. The psychology behind these calls reveals something fascinating about human nature. When people feel helpless or overwhelmed, they'll reach for any authority figure who might solve their problems. Police become catch-all problem solvers for everything from technology troubles to fashion emergencies. Well, dispatchers handle thousands of these bizarre requests annually. Training now includes specific protocols for politely redirecting non-emergency calls without hanging up on genuinely confused citizens. Some departments even track the most unusual requests, creating informal greatest hits collections among staff. What's particularly striking is how these callers genuinely believe their situations warrant emergency response. The mushroom caller wasn't pranking anyone. They were legitimately concerned about yard safety. The remote-seeking gentleman truly saw his situation as urgent enough to involve law enforcement. These public disturbances might seem harmless, but they tie up valuable emergency resources. Every minute spent explaining why police don't provide dating assistance is time unavailable for actual emergencies. The system works when people understand what constitutes real emergencies versus personal inconveniences. But these peculiar requests pale in comparison to people who completely misunderstand what emergency services actually do for citizens. Emergency services exist for one reason: genuine emergencies. But some people have turned 911 into their personal concierge service, and the results are absolutely mind-boggling. 2 burglars in Pennsylvania broke into a house and decided they needed help moving their stolen goods. Instead of calling friends or renting a truck like normal criminals, they dialed 911. They actually asked the dispatcher to send officers to assist with transporting their loot. The dispatcher, understandably confused, asked them to repeat their request. They did. Twice. Police arrived within minutes, but not to help with the moving. Then there's the case that defies all logic. A man broke into a bakery in the middle of the night and somehow managed to get himself trapped in the walk-in freezer. Panicking as the temperature dropped, he called 911 for help. The dispatcher could hear him shivering as he explained his location and predicament. But halfway through giving his information, reality hit him like a frozen brick. He suddenly remembered he was committing a crime and hung up. Officers traced the call anyway and found him still stuck, blue with cold and full of regret. Let's not forget the drunk gentleman who thought he'd discovered a brilliant transportation hack. He called 911 requesting a free ride home after a night of heavy drinking. When officers explained that police cars aren't taxis, he insisted it was a legitimate emergency service. "I need to get home safely," he argued. "Isn't that what you want?" The officers agreed completely and provided him with safe accommodation for the night in a jail cell. But the creativity doesn't stop there. One caller tried to game the system by reporting a fake robbery at a pizza place. His plan? Emergency responders would rush to the scene, discover no crime, but the pizza staff would be so grateful for the quick response that they'd expedite his order. The scheme backfired spectacularly when police arrived to find him waiting impatiently for his pepperoni special. His fake emergency report earned him real criminal charges. And the weird part is how confident these callers sound. A woman in Nevada called police because she was absolutely convinced her lottery ticket was a winner. She demanded officers come verify her numbers because she didn't trust the convenience store clerk. "This is $1 million emergency," she insisted. The ticket was worth exactly $0. What drives people to misuse emergency services so creatively? Maybe it's desperation. Maybe it's ignorance. Or maybe some folks just haven't grasped that 911 operators aren't there to solve every minor inconvenience in their lives. These calls tie up resources that could be responding to actual emergencies. Emergency dispatchers hear it all, but these cases stand out because of their sheer audacity. Each caller seemed genuinely surprised when their emergency didn't receive the response they expected. However, not all bizarre police encounters involve misused emergency services. Sometimes the weird stuff happens when people voluntarily walk into police stations with requests that make these 911 calls look almost reasonable. When you're in trouble with the law, most people hire a lawyer or stay quiet. Not everyone follows that playbook. One suspect decided to ask the arresting officers for legal advice on how to get out of his traffic ticket. The audacity is incredible. He literally asked the police who caught him speeding how he could avoid paying the fine. The officers probably wondered if this guy understood how the justice system works. Then there's the shoplifter who created his own downfall in the most embarrassing way possible. This genius tried to steal lobsters from a grocery store by stuffing them down his pants. Bad idea. The lobsters didn't cooperate. His pants split open, and he left behind a trail of confused crustaceans as he fled the scene. Store employees found him outside, lobsterless and dignity-free. Sometimes crime really doesn't pay. But wait, it gets stranger. A Florida man actually brought his own methamphetamine to the police station. Why? He wanted them to test it for quality and purity. This guy was so concerned about getting ripped off by his dealer that he asked law enforcement to verify his illegal drugs were legitimate. The police were happy to help by arresting him immediately. They probably thanked him for making their job so easy. The award for worst timing goes to a man who decided to rob a cash register during a police charity dinner. Picture this scenario. Dozens of off-duty officers eating together in one restaurant, and this criminal mastermind chooses that exact moment to commit armed robbery. He didn't even make it to the parking lot before getting tackled by half the police force in town. The entire robbery lasted about 30 seconds before becoming the shortest police chase in history. Let's not forget that these aren't isolated incidents. Studies reveal that up to 20% of all non-emergency 911 calls have absolutely nothing to do with actual crimes. That means 1 in 5 calls involve someone complaining about their sandwich, asking for help finding TV remotes, or reporting suspicious squirrels. Emergency dispatchers deal with more nonsense than actual emergencies on a regular basis. The weird part is how these calls keep coming. People genuinely believe police should handle every minor inconvenience in their lives. Missing bacon on burgers becomes a federal case. Roomba vacuum cleaners trigger home invasion reports. Smart TVs giving relationship advice require official investigations, makes you wonder what people did before 911 existed, right? What makes these stories even more incredible is the complete lack of self-awareness involved. These aren't pranks or jokes. People are dead serious when they make these calls. They honestly think their problems deserve immediate police attention. The disconnect between reality and expectation is absolutely mind-blowing. Emergency services exist to protect and serve communities during genuine crises. Instead, they're becoming customer service centers for people who can't handle basic life situations. The next time you hear sirens, remember they might be rushing to resolve a dispute over missing onions or investigate a potentially haunted refrigerator,